Walk jam, nitty gritty. You're listening to the boy from the big bad city. This is Jam Hot. This is Jam Hot.
Welcome to Ooze Hot with your host, Wil Chung.
Greetings, friends, acquaintances. No, this is the wrong podcast, but it's me, Alan, here. I just wanted to give you a quick heads up and say apologies that this recording is late. This is not Will's fault. This is not any of the Who's Hot team. This is my fault. I've been away and I did try and edit this over the weekend. However, I was doing the Farmyard Jam. Didn't get time to download it was my biggest thing. I needed a connection. My phone's died. My everything died. Anyway, here it is. Sorry, it's, I don't know, about 6-7 hours later than what we normally planned for. So apologies, but let's get on to the nuclear recap.
Hello, and thank you for downloading the latest UKOCR podcast. My name is Wil Chung, and I'm here to talk about Nuclear Challenge Cup, which all incorporates the national trials, OCR WC, and of course the second round of the UKOCR series. I'm here with my co-host. I've got Chris Shipley. Chris, hey, how you doing?
You all right, Will? You all right? Everyone else?
Yes, and we've got Becky Neal, of course. Hi, Becky.
Hello.
And we have special guest James Parrish, race director of Nuclear Races. James, welcome.
Hello.
How are you doing, James? You recovered from the weekend?
I'm doing all right. I am somewhat jaded, and my hard drive, my brain is full, but decompressing, and we'll get there. It's nearly all cleared up, and a distant memory already. And then on to the next one, no doubt. Yeah, that's very true. Actually, the next one will be Nuclear Fix, the new thing.
Awesome. Yes. So we're here. We're going to be recapping Nuclear Challenge Cup, and we're going to go straight over to Becky. Becky, first place, absolutely fantastic. Congratulations. Well done. Everyone's clapping, and the crowd goes wild. So before I hand over to you, we did the review show a couple of weeks ago, and then privately, once we stopped recording, you said you were really going for it, and I thought, yes, that's the determination. So how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously really pleased, and I'm proud of myself. It was tough. It was competitive. It wasn't easy in any sense. So I'm really proud of myself. I delivered, and I love nuclear races. So I'm glad that I managed to kind of clinch the win on this occasion. Yeah.
Becky, why don't we start with top 10 of the females?
Okay, so it was pretty closely fought battle, and the positions did change a lot, and we can talk about that in a bit more detail later. But the final results were me in first, 1 hour 42 seconds, closely followed by Federica de Korea, 1:41.21, and then Louise Ferryman, 1:44.52. Then we had Tamar Barkley, Cara McQuarrie, Josie Lloyd, Ellie Brimacombe, Shirley Pace, Libby Joyce, and Pip Rainbow.
Solid.
That was amazing. And we saw the lineup. I've seen a bit of the Travelator, but take me through your race.
Sure. Well, I mean, we managed to start just a couple of minutes behind the men, so we had a bit of space, but we caught them up pretty quickly, I would say. But we did have enough, sandbags and everything, so that was all good. So Fede and Andrea led out pretty quick, managed to stay with them through the first forest bit. Me and Josie were with them for a little while, and then Fede and Andrea pulled away. I was just behind Josie. We were running, so I was in about fourth position, and that stayed pretty consistent through the stream, up around the back near the axes and stuff, through aquaphobia. That aquaphobia bit, you kind of come back on yourselves, so you can suddenly see everybody. So Fede was in the water, and me and Josie were running along the top, and then Andrea was in there as well. So we all suddenly knew where we were, and then we could also simply see behind us. So I know Tamar and Lou were close by as well. So it felt competitive, even sort of halfway around. And then we knew what was coming, kind of. We're running back towards all the Challenge Cup obstacles. And I guess the first more technical one was probably spinning monkeys. And that's where I overtook Josie. I've been on there quite a few more times, I imagine, than her. And I enjoy the momentum side of that one. And that was the first penalty obstacle. So I made up a position there, and we kind of did that loop around the minions and the seesaw, and that was another good place to see like how close people were. But that loop was actually longer than we're used to, the bit where you go up to the minions. So I think it was kind of misleading. You thought you might have been closer than you were. And then it was into Kingfisher and all the technical obstacles, and that's when the penalties started to hit, and that's when the positions started to change a bit more, I think. So I didn't really know exactly when I went into the lead, but I think it was on the gorilla bars. So I did all of those rigs there. That was long. The green net was tough, and it really blew up one of my arms. So doing that second gorilla bar obstacles was really, I had to really battle for it. Then I came off that, and I saw Andrea coming off the penalty, and we ran up the hill together and started the low rig together. And at that point, I thought Fede was still ahead, but then she arrived behind us, and I was like, oh, we're in the lead. So we ended up all doing the penalty on the low rig. Me and Andrea ran into the forest together, and then I overtook her on the rope climb, and then ran away. Tried to get a good lead on those obstacles that remained. Like stairway was fine, and the coat hanger one was all good, and the rings were all fine. But I knew that there was still enough distance for them to kind of catch me up again with their speed and very strong determination. And all the water kind of out the way. There was 2 more slides actually, 2 more slides. So I was running as hard as I could, but by that point you are pretty exhausted. And I could just about hold them off, so I got to the travelator first, but didn't make it. Well, I got to the top first time, but the transition off the top is really hard, I find. I don't have enough energy to put my leg in front, so I kind of get my leg caught behind, and it dragged me down. Anyway, that was hectic. And then Andrea arrived, and she had a couple of goes, and Fede arrived. And then I got up second time, and I didn't even look back. I just ran to the finish because I thought it was going to be really close. And it was. Fede finished not very long, like less than a minute behind me, and we were knackered, hyperventilating, collapsing into a hug together, waiting to see who else came over the line next. So it was pretty exciting. Yeah.
It looked exciting, and I saw the photos of the finish, and I saw the video, and again, for listeners of Swift Half, we'd just been to Toughest the week before, but it reminded me a little bit of that super ramp at Toughest when it's almost then everyone's kind of got to the end. How much do you and we talked about this, didn't we? I said this is probably hopefully what you were thinking, but give yourself time to recover and have a proper go at the travelator again. When I actually saw, I think I counted on that video, Andrea had 2 goes in between you having your first attempt and going and successfully getting your second attempt. And I think possibly from your toughest days, knowing you really have to just give yourself that time and not be kind of put off by people around you that are just attempting and possibly going to get it or not.
Yeah, like time changes, like it feels hectic. Everything's going so slowly / fast. I don't really know. And you don't know how your body feels until you try the first one. Like you need that kind of reference sometimes, because like all of us, if we were fresh and warmer and less hungry, we'd probably do it easy, but that's not the case. And you don't know that until you're there. So you just got to try as hard as you can. But you need to really commit everything. And I think that's the same with any obstacle really, but it's just really clear one those obstacles where you literally have to put everything in to overcome the obstacle. So yeah, Andrea had more goes in less time. And I just made it count. And that's what I've learned from Toughest, I guess.
So one more thing, just before I go over to Chris and talk about Travelator with Chris. The other thing that I noticed, and we talked about the Travelator for last year at Rough Runner, didn't we? And that was going to be the new obstacle there. But I saw, was it Fede kind of going right to the edge of the Travelator and just kind of trying to go for it rather than having a run up? And I thought, oh, that was smart. It was a different way of doing it. But yeah, the transitions between getting onto the ramp or Travelator and then getting off it, I saw a lot of people get to the top but still somehow trip down. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, and Louise Ferryman also used another technique. She took her shoes off.
Oh yes,
threw her shoes up first. Which I think is what...
Chris, how did you find the travelator?
I wish someone had sort of told me the technique to get up it before I had a go at it.
What do you mean you don't listen to Who's Hot last season? Is that what you're saying?
I could probably listen, but I don't remember anything, do I? It goes in one ear and out the other. It's like when I talk to my girlfriend. So I came up to it. I mean, came up to it with Ryan Ibbotson was there, James Burnt was there, and Kenny Sounds was there, and I think Fergie he just got up it. So there was a bit of pressure for everyone to get up it at the time, but I sort of casually walked up to it and thought I'd give it the beans and just run as hard as I could to get up it. Unfortunately, that's not the technique to do it, because I leant forward, and as soon as I leant forward and put a lot of effort in, I was down on the face. But yeah, it took me 3 goes to sort of work out how to get up it properly, and it's lean back and keep your eyes forward, really. Yeah. It was quick though. It's moving fast.
Very.
Yeah, we set that quite fast to challenge people, to mix things up. It's interesting, that one, because you don't really get the chance to practice it, do you?
No,
Exactly.
When you set up on race day, there are various techniques to getting up. I hadn't heard of taking off the shoe one. I personally don't run like mad at it when I go up it. I do take it steady. Walk onto it and then just match the speed and just increase it slowly.
Yeah, and look forward, I suppose, isn't it? Look forward. And just keep
I
going
personally look down. But that, I feel that's all to do with having a game plan and preparing. I think people, from what I saw, were unprepared for it. They hadn't really considered it as a pretty serious obstacle. And if they'd walked up to that, taken some time, thought about it, let their legs rest, perhaps chosen one of the travelators. A couple of them are newer than the others. They're a darker color. You've got more grip on them. If you considered things a little bit more, then I think people would have found it easier.
I think for some of us older people, James, me included, we just remember gladiators, and it's just a little bit of fun more than anything else. But I asked for some comments on Nuclear Challenge Cup on the members group of British Obstacle Sports. Some about the travelator. I'll start with this one from Alex Young. Like the idea of the travelator at the end, which meant spectators got really involved and brought a lot of team spirit to OCR racing, as the crowd ensured a lot of the athletes didn't take off their bibs. There's always that little bit of pressure, isn't there, when everybody else is watching, like, I've got to do this, I've got to do this.
It's a great final obstacle for that reason.
Yeah, I love it. Maybe turn the travelator down a notch or have a penalty loop for failure at that speed. It was equivalent skill of CC obstacles. Erica,
it's hard to put a penalty in there at the end of the race, in the middle of the race village. You just don't have the distance to do it. And if you have a 2 or 3 go rule as well, again, it's really, really difficult on the marshals to keep track of 5 travelators and 5 athletes all at the same time. It is what it is.
Yeah, I also think there could be that. Okay, if you definitely know there's 2 or 3 goes, you could just step on it, step off, step on, step off, step on. Rather than have a proper go. So they've done their 3 very quickly. Erica Paul. I'll thank you very much. Tough course due to the conditions. Travelator should have had a penalty, as it ruined a lot of people's races. I don't mind the fast speed, that's fair enough. But there should have been another option if you didn't get up. Having to give up my bib on the last obstacle because there was no penalty option was quite soul destroying for a race that I normally love. Megan Tranter, also props to Megan, who is starting a new podcast specifically aimed at the female audience. So please go find that out. I'll get the name in a second. But Megan Tranter, my first Nuclear, and I mostly had a fab time echoing others on ridiculous completion rate of the low rig. We'll come back to that soon. I get that we have make more rigs I get that we have to make rigs more difficult, but 3 people out of the whole CC field completing it is just tragic and means it's too difficult. Props to Shelley for being the only female to do it. Love the challenger travelator at the end. It was very difficult, but a great show for spectators. I took a lot of skin off my kneecaps though. Oh bless. Liz, look, overall I loved it. Harder than previous CCs, but 1 lap of 12k is better than 2 laps of 7k. The travelator was dangerously fast. Got up there eventually, but the expensive skin on my knees, not the only one, Liz. Needs to be a tiny bit slower or fail 3 times, you go up with the slower one. good to see there were more women taking part this time. So lots of comments on the travelator, but I think Chris and Becky, as we've mentioned, you've gone through 12k of mud exercise, and it's probably you're just getting quite tired. Well, most likely you're very tired by then. And I do get James's point that possibly it looks more like a fun, air quotes, fun obstacle rather than just something that, you know, take your time and get up there and, you know, with some form of game plan.
Personally, I would prefer at the end of a race a sprint finish. I don't know about you, Becky, being a racer as well. I think it just gives you a chance to really give everything you got at the last bit. But it's great for spectators, the travelator.
Yeah, fatigue was definitely the key thing there, and it was easy to underestimate it compared to the other rigs that we'd been focused on and things. I do think, you know, I watched a few videos of people doing it because ultimately a lot of people did succeed. You know, even if it took 5 or more attempts, they somehow managed it. In the end, that's what I've talked about toughest before. But if you look at the number of steps people take on it, there's some men doing it in 6 steps. I did about 16. Megan did about 27. So the difficulty, like what you have to do to achieve that, is actually quite varied, even if it's the same speed. That can be, you know, gender, fatigue, how hard you've been racing, just how your body is distributed in terms of your strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, it's complex.
Chris, congratulations, you got 10th place on your race. Let's talk about your race. Let's talk about the male race. How did it all go?
So the male race was good. It was a battlefield out there. I'll go through the results. So you got Morgan Maxwell, he came first. Dan Titcombe came second. Jason Brunnett came third. Scott Barker fourth. Darren Martin fifth. Fergal Kenny sixth. Kenny Sams seventh. Eighth James Burton. Ninth Ryan Ibbotson, and then me at 10th. And you basically had 3 different packs. You had the first 3 who was in the lead pack, and they got away really, really fast. What did Jason get? Jason was 117, and then Scotty Barker 4 finished 118. So it was a minute ahead, basically. And then you had the chase pack between them, which was between 4th, 5th, and 6th. They were kind of in their own sort of pack, but then the real battle was 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And that just kept changing all the time. Even with the guys in 11th and 12th, it was going back and forth all the time. Even after you got through the hard obstacles, it was still changing places, and everyone sort of didn't really know where it was going. Kenny Sams and we had a really, really good battle. He was just pushing all the way, really strong on the obstacles. I think a lot of people failed different obstacles. I mean, obviously a lot of people failed that low rig, but yeah, it was a changing race all the way.
Talk to me more about the low rig.
I didn't think it was too bad. I mean, obviously I failed it. I mean, I only found out today that you could actually touch the higher bits of the obstacle. Apparently you can grab just above the ball. Did anyone know that?
You can put your finger on top of the ball, but
no, I heard you can grab not the strap itself, but just above the ball.
On the ball with the metal bit coming out the top. Yeah, but
apparently you can grab just above the attachment. So that was in the rules, and maybe it was one of
the start of the rules. It's not, but it's on top.
That's one. I mean, even I can't answer that. The rules were late coming out because there was a lot of discussion behind the scenes. So, I mean, that's a valid point of discussion anyway with this race and any race, that really you guys need to know the course physically with a map and actually have the rules and study those rules sooner.
Yeah, totally agree. But other than that, the low rig itself, I think the worst bit and the reason that most people failed it was where it was placed in the race itself. I mean, just after the gauntlet that you had, really fatiguing the arms, and it only allowed one sort of style of getting through it. And I think that's just the only reason a lot of people failed.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different points to consider here. Like the touching every attachment thing, I think was initially meant to encourage people to make it on the first attempt. You know, if you'd had one attempt only and you tried a particular technique and not realized just how far apart they were, you probably would have failed on the second or third attachment, or more likely to. Whereas if you've been told you had to use each one, then you wouldn't underestimate the gaps between them. So that might have been one of the strategies. I don't know. but also maybe just the challenge of doing it a different way, using your core and your lock off strength. But yeah, the wetness is what made it difficult for me. I had the strength, I just was slipping, I guess. Oh, I guess that means I didn't have enough strength, but yes.
Yeah, because I slipped off. No, sorry, I didn't slip off. I missed the attachment. The one that's shaped like an 8.
Yes, the metal.
Yeah,
one.
so I swang into that and I just missed it. And then obviously, because you're holding on to that last attachment behind you, you can't correct yourself because you're only on that one strategy of completion. You don't have any other tools in your bag. You've only got one go at it because you've only got one option. Yeah.
So from my perspective, it was plenty hard enough for the conditions on the day. It was very slippery. You needed a lot of grip strength, but the day and the water is the key. I stood there for a while. There was no effort generally to keep the hands warm or to clap the hands coming up to that obstacle. There was a lot of athletes dressed very lightly, just not gearing up to the weather. Now, it was the same weather the day before. It was freezing cold. It's a nuclear course. You're going to be in and out of water. That should be part of your game plan there. That's not a surprise. I accept it was hard and really hard, but that's not uncommon in Europe. That sort of setup, those sorts of attachments. I felt that it's the weather on the day that made the biggest difference, just being so cold and wet. But that's going to happen. That's not something a race director can just decide the day before, even a couple of days before, that forecast looks bad, let's make it easier. That's done and dusted. That really is a recipe for 100% failure on an obstacle. It's you just got to take it as it is.
James, would you have liked to try and maybe had the race the day before and had it before you had like all the other races on Saturday go through it? I mean, how many guys did you have going through the course on Saturday? I know they weren't on that particular part, but how many people actually went through?
There was 4,500 on Saturday. So
yeah, so
would I have done it on Saturday? No, because the course needs time. We change the course every year. If you want 100% perfect course, that's quite easy to do. It just stays the same each year. We learn and we just get better and better at putting on that race. If we want a course to change and evolve, things will change every year, and we have to learn every year. And that is actually, it's very stimulating to see there's so much discussion going on now around this. This hasn't happened for several years, and it's great. I might come across as sort of defensive, but actually I'm not. I'm here because actually I like the criticism, the constructive criticism and advice. I'm not. I can't see the whole race the whole time. I've got plenty of other things on my mind. It's where I get a lot of my feedback. So I'm right for that. But to answer your question, would I like to on Saturday? No, that is my absolute pinch time. Is first open doors on Saturday morning when things need adjusting and going wrong. And
I see. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Yeah,
that's the worst time to put on extra pressure from my point of view and try and put on a competitive race. That is fair. Everybody wants, fairness. And I 100% prefer it on Sunday where everything is settled down and dialed in.
Yeah, I mean, and this is probably the first time that we've had rules for Challenge Cup. We had videos for the penalty obstacles in the past, but this time we had a whole rule book, pages long.
You did.
And everyone had that, even if it wasn't enough time, and we would aim for more time. We'd aim for more time, but like you said, it takes a lot of reviewing. Many people reviewed it, and it's hard to pick up all the things, especially when some people reviewing it aren't in the venue or anything. And it has to be corroborated with, with the race director, with the rule, with the the federation, and also the videos, and make sure it's all consistent and stuff. So I think that's a really good step in the right direction, and people did read it, and people did try to follow it, and the marshals and the technical officials also were, we definitely saw improvements at all of the obstacles in that sense. So I think we've come a long way in just 6 months since the last Challenge Cup.
Oh yeah, definitely.
No,
definitely. I mean,
I think.
Go on, Will.
I was just going to move on with some of the comments from about the low rig from the British Obstacle Sports members. Alex Young, athletes look at the hang-on races and say that we want technical obstacles like these so we can better compete when we come up against our European counterparts, and also so we ourselves can improve our skills. Lots of failures on the rigs, including myself. I think a lot of this is to do with coming out of full submersion of cold water beforehand. Zach Harper, a great race overall. The low rig was just too difficult, especially when muddy and slippery, but really only needed another ring also to get the completion up and make it easy to get legs up. Personally love the Travelator. I think the shock was just that it felt like it had been cranked up since the last Challenge Cup. Dean Johnson, another great event set up by Nuclear. I know how long it takes to set up, as I've done the last 2 years. Challenge Cup obstacles felt bicep heavy to me, and having to touch every attachment on the low rig didn't feel like obstacle racing. However, putting on a race together like this that takes at least 2 weeks to set up for 120 people is such a hard task. Getting all the components right is a hard mix. And I think, as you mentioned, James, the weather would definitely have played the part. I don't know whether Becky and Chris want to say anything about that, because I mentioned to James, if Challenge Cup was in its normal position in November, actually people probably would have taken the cold and the wet a little bit more seriously than they would have done in mid-May.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I was cold at the point when I did the low rig. I was cold. I didn't feel like that was what was holding me back. It was because I just did 2 other rigs back to back and didn't have much recovery, and the grips were wet. And also in my job as a sports scientist, I've tested grip strength in response to the cold. And even if you put your forearm in cold water for 1 minute, my grip strength is like 70% what it is without being in the cold for only 1 minute. So it's pretty easy for the cold to affect you. And of course, there's some people who are more at risk or susceptible to cold than others. Various different physiological reasons for that. So it's difficult for it to be fair. Even, it's not anyway, because we've seen that in women's racing. We never get as high at obstacle completion rates. It's almost like people are realizing what it's like for us in other events. So yeah, it was a bit of a wake up call, and people have been asking for harder things. So it was a good to try that, especially as it gave the opportunity for the best obstacle course racers to still show themselves. Like the person who won the men's race, Mo, he completed it. So he was the best runner and the best obstacler, and he won the race. So that gave him the ability to prove that he could do that. It allowed differentiation at the very top of the field. Yes, maybe it didn't go down the field far enough to allow a bit more differentiation. And in fact, Shelley was the only woman to do it, and she wasn't at the top of the field. Yeah. So it would have, So
Becky, how do you feel? I was just thinking there. So what do you feel about this concept? So you've come out of the water, you're approaching a low rig, you're then aware that it's going to require a lot of grip strength. You're aware your muscles are cramping or suffering. What about the concept then that the actual athlete decides to turn around, run back on the course 200 or 300 meters just to warm up? Perhaps do a couple of burpees, do whatever it takes to warm those muscles up.
There's no way in the world I'd be running backwards. No, I don't know about you, Becky, but I would not. I've got people who are already going past me. There's no way I'm going to be running past people to warm myself up.
I think you're saying, James.
But if I was to make the penalties halfway to Onga, so they're like half a mile long, then that would put the emphasis on actually completing.
Yeah, I mean, I tried my absolute hardest. You got
to think about it a bit more.
So physiologically, it takes a long time to warm up after being cold. There's after drop. So your forearm muscle temperature and the peripheral nerves there are going to take a while. Like a bit more of a run isn't going to make a big difference in that amount of time. It takes a bit longer than that. So, and especially with people who are in a competitive environment, not willing to risk it many seconds at all, like Chris just kind of mentioned, I think it would have to be built in a bit more authentically for it to have a big enough impact. But yeah, I felt more pumped from the actual green net.
Yeah, that's why I said I think it's more the obstacle placement just after that gauntlet. That's really the only reason people felt. I think even most of the European races, there is a stretch out between a forearm fatiguing obstacle and another forearm fatiguing obstacle. Sometimes they mix it up with a different modality. So you're doing a different obstacle between that just to get yourself.
Like
Yes.
That's why people find the 3K harder than the 15K, even though the 15K has more obstacles. Like you're at risk of failing more things. You don't have any more bands, but people find the 3K harder simply because they're closer together. And you don't have that forearm recovery.
And we've got to look as well. I mean, apart from Mo, the other two athletes that completed the low rig also failed other obstacles. So, you know, there is that comparison. I think it was just where it was. I mean,
and we understand why, like, Challenge Cup needs to be in a small environment, you know, right next to it. So it's naturally going to be like that. And we talked about that in the preview. We all knew that was going to be like that. Yeah. I was doing things, you know, to my forearms to try and recover really quickly between. Yeah, but at some point I was giving it. But I was neck and neck to win the race. And I thought I could do it, and I tried to do it, and it was really wet. I didn't wear gloves as well, and usually in those kind of wet conditions I would, but I lost them and I got some new ones, and I decided I trusted my hands more, like Chris said last week.
Don't listen to me, Becky.
I tested my new gloves. I had 3 pairs. I chose my favorites. I tested them on my rig at home. And then I decided to not wear them. Well, I had them in my pocket. I didn't.
So how far apart should I have in distance between two similar obstacles? And your view?
Oh,
go on, Becky.
Sorry, I thought you were going to say attachments. Then I was going to give you arm lengths, but you were talking about between obstacles. Between obstacles,
give yourself a chance to recover.
I think you've got to be thinking about it in time. So boulderers, when they go climbing between climbs, they might have 6 minutes between climbs. You know, it seems very casual and very social, but that's because they're literally resting their forearms so that they can have a good attempt the next time. That's why it looks so relaxed when you go bouldering.
And everyone's just chilling out on the mats,
yeah,
looking up at people.
Never going to have that happen at Challenge Cup. I just want to go through the male and female Masters results as well. Give them a shout out. So male Masters, James Burton, Ryan Ibbotson, Barry Buchanan, Alex Young, John Redman, Ramunis Wickes, Declan Trainer, Jamie Schofield, John Paul, Dean Johnson, and whilst this goes, oh, that was very quick. Lou Ferriman, Tamar Barkley, Claire Bancroft, Kerry White, Sandra Martin, Erica Paul, Rachel Fisher, and Wendy Brothers. I'll go through a couple of comments as well. Dave Peters, loved the event, loved everything nuclear, disliked some of the CC. For me, it was too much focus on bent arm strength and not enough opportunity to see a variety of skill on show. Also found too many obstacles too low for a tall racer. Yeah, well, I'm a short person, so that's all right. I actually like the amount of water in the race and feel terrain plays a pivotal role in a race. So loved the route they took us on and the course itself. Love the Travelator as it was good, but should have been a bit slower for women. Same for men. Start gate was just a bit silly. Overall, I had a good time and found it a good course. Just wanted to see a bit more variety in the rigs and their setup. Darren Martin, great race, nice running sections where you could put the hammer down, great selection of obstacles. Andrea Burquez, so much hard work goes into this event. It's a great course in areas and actually quite fun. Variety of obstacles up until the 8K. The water section was great, but then it just seemed like all the technical obstacles were bunched together just as you came out of the lake section, which if you have great circulation and can deal with cold, perfect, but frustrating to see people fail who normally complete them. It's a bloody tough course, and that's great, but I think an element of racing needs to be taken into consideration. And just to finish off the comments, and again, thank you to all the British Obstacle Sports members that responded to my post. Lou Ferriman, I went in knowing it was a huge battle of minds and body and the mix of water, mud, trails, and rigs just made it brilliant. The buzz, the people, the marshals, and the competitiveness of this was great. Travelator was savage, but it's obstacle racing and you have to be prepared for the unexpected, even if it hits you in the nose, the shin, the knee, and the cheek. Gonna say it, I'm bloody buzzing with my placing, and the best wins come from those battles. So there really is kind of, as we were saying, James, just such a great mix of comments. And, you know, cold has ruined it for some people, a bit of water, but, you know, there are people that have come out much stronger. You know, whatever place in the world, they've come out much stronger knowing that they can race these sort of races anyway.
Yeah, it's hard to decide from my chair whether next year to do a very similar type of race or to change it up. I mean, some of those comments, it's fair. The starting gates to begin with. Well, I lost my nerve. 3 or 4 or a week before the race, 4 or 5 days before the race, we probably had 75, 80 entrants. We then, I think it went up to 120 in the last few days. And that field was competitive. I was worried about groups running together. So, that was on my instruction. Last minute, I said to Damon in charge of the village for me, restrict them. It doesn't matter. We in the brief beforehand, we said, look, your time doesn't start till you go over the mat. We just slowed the flow to go out to make sure we didn't have congestion later on. And it did look a bit chaotic from the video. I wasn't there at the time, so I accept that. I need to think about that a bit more. I liked what Dean said, that actually the rec bag carry to begin with, which is not far from there, should have been more substantial for the pros, and that would have thinned it out a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's down to a race where there's 120 people, athletes, and then we've got the rest of the day still to consider and manage on the course. So there's a limited amount of changing we can do at the last minute, but that's that's certainly valid comment. The rigs, I mean the variety. There's a lot. I don't think I've ever been accused of not having enough variety on the course. The rigs being similar, not particularly, I don't think, but I do accept that they were hard enough on the day, and I do accept that slippery clay Essex mud on straightforward attachments there is probably a thing of the past on this race. We'll try and learn a little bit from that. But on the whole, it's meant to stretch people. In fact, if I didn't have any sort of criticism that it was too hard, then I think I'd be a little bit worried. I do worry about the women and the men. I do worry that it's very hard to set a course. It's very hard to set a course anyway, weeks, months before, not knowing the weather. Then to take into consideration men and women. Clearly, women generally aren't as strong, so they're going to have a less of a completion, and you can't just fail everything. That worries me. But to alter every obstacle, so there's two ways of doing it. The male and female way, that's an awful lot of work. Yeah. And the same with penalties. The Challenge Cup obstacles, we put penalties on. Some of the harder main race ones we put penalties on. Others we didn't. And some people found that very hard. But in my defence, I can't put penalties on every single obstacle. The setup time for that, or the rec bags required, or whatever, would be monumental. It's a tricky one to get right, and you've got to draw the line somewhere. You want these races to be hard for the top guys, but also stimulating for the guys that are coming in underneath, so they can feel a sense of achievement with getting round. It's a very tricky business. Actually, requires almost on a race day separate, or even before it's separate management. You just need someone just focused, who understands, and that's the trick I find, who understands the position of the athlete, but also the race director, that you cannot do a lot of stuff you just because of flow and lots of other reasons, but basically it's down to flow and queuing and just general fairness.
Exactly. And like you say, if that rec bag had been longer at the start, it might have been that the women might have got there and there'd been no rec bag available. Yeah. So it could go. There's so many different scenarios.
I did note earlier on when you gave us your run through. Actually, I need a bigger gap between the male and female. I think we did 2 or 3 minutes, and you said you caught up quite quickly, and presumably a bit of congestion there. So maybe we should have.
Yeah, we had to wait to get onto a couple of like the monkey bars and stuff.
Yeah. So maybe we should have 10 minutes difference there in future as a
and they'll still catch up.
Yep.
Yeah, but not so many of you.
You need to go faster, Chris. I will also now want to just go through the overall standings. We'll start with the team overall standings. This is after the first 2 races. Nicola Phoenix, first place. Rumble Racing, second. Primal Fitness, third. Team Grit, fourth. Nuclear Wild Forest, fifth. PT Barn Races, OPP Warriors, OMRM, Team Nuts, and in the top 10, Fit Body Farm Freestylers. I will go to the female. Just wait for this to load up. So first place, Federica Di Caria, 880 points. Becky Neal, second place at 850. JC Lloyd, 785. Louise Furman, 778. Tamar Barkley, 764. Karen Macquarie, 752. Libby Joyce in seventh place, 698. Pip Rainbow in eighth place with 692. Also, Cheryl Lee Place, is equal eighth place, and finishing in the top 10, Cheryl Beach with 686 points. Over to the male. First place, Morgan Maxwell, 900 points to Jason Brunnock, 850. Scotty Barker, 759. Darren Martin, 748. Fergal Keeney, 730 points. Kenny Sams, 704. Joint seventh place, Barry Buchanan and James Burton with 698 points. Ninth place, Connor Wickens, 690 points. And 10th place, Chris Shipley, 687 points. So in the top 10. Masters Male, Barry Buchanan and James Burton, top first place, 698. Third place, Alex Young, 684. Declan Trainer, 670. John Redman, 669. Ramunas Wickes, 660. Edward Lambert, 651. Reese Jeremiah, 633. Jamie Schofield, 614 points. And finishing off the top 10 is John Paul at 604. And the female Masters, we've got Lou Furman in top place, 778. Tamar Barkley, 764. Third place, Claire Bancroft, 762. Kerry White, 666. Sandra Martin, 659. Rebecca Hunt, 339. Emma McRae, 336. Eighth place, Encarni Cascalis, 327. Nicola Hunt with 326. And Julia Winter with 321 points. All to play for, only the second race. Lots of races still to come up. Chris, Becky, any final notes of Nuclear Challenge Cup before we go to the close?
Yeah, I mean it's really hotting up from all those
Amazing.
results and stats, and I'm really glad that so many people came out for it, and hopefully you're happy with that too, James.
That's right.
Like,
it's how it should be. It feels like there's momentum and the
Yeah.
spirit back. So it gets my
and the fact that we got to have like a national trials event with head-to-head racing, I think is a really good step forward. And there's other big events that have happened recently, and this one is probably, of course it's your race, it's Nuclear Races, it still is Nuclear Races at its core, but it was a really good preparation for people considering going to European and World Championships. Certainly given us a bit of a wake-up call before Hungary in a few weeks' time. So I think that all worked really well, and of course the excellent bling on offer at Challenge Cup and the giant trophy that I just about managed to lift.
Becky, that trophy is almost as big as you. That was amazing.
Yeah. And I can update my name in the Hall of Fame, hopefully. That still exists. Yes.
I've been there a few times.
Yeah.
What should I do given this new enthusiasm? Should I do Challenge Cup again in the autumn?
Yeah.
Make two in
as well as
Ooh.
Yeah, do it twice a year instead of once.
Oh, what,
So-
in November?
Yeah.
the thing is, people will be aiming for the national championships, which is going to be at Sparta in October. This might be, in November. It might be quite close, and people might end with that. I don't know. I would still do it.
I know a lot of people. I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but some people like to finish their season before then and start recouping all the sort of efforts that they've had throughout the year and get a really good build in for the next sort of season. But
me and Mo would do it.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could put some form of poll up on UKOCR.
Yeah, that's the best way to
what
do
the
it.
thoughts are.
Good idea. Good idea.
Yeah.
Chris, any last thoughts?
No, like I said, like Becky said as well. I mean, it's really, really good to have racing back to. I mean, I think that was probably the most competitive Challenge Cup we've had since.
Fields are stacked.
Yeah, since way before COVID, like 2017, 16, and things like that. It was proper good. We even had some guys
And that
coming over,
selection,
getting out, and
those
the
kind
selection's
of
really helped.
confirmations of those things, because of course the age groups are slightly different from the results on the day. So all that information will be coming out really, really soon from the selection committee.
Yeah, I've been waiting for them to come
They're
out.
on it. And the 3K.
We want them out.
It's happening. It's happening.
And all the rivalries are coming back now. Everyone's like chomping at the bit. I mean, James has been giving me beef. Darren's giving me beef. You know, Mo's giving it's going back, and Kenny, I've got my eye on you, and it's just like, you know, that's what racing is all about. It's about having a battle with everyone else, and the Challenge Cup did show that. I mean, the failures in that didn't change the fact that it was back and forth, even when in the, you know, all throughout the race.
Yeah, and I really admire some of the people who obviously, like, this isn't their favorite race sometimes, particularly people who aren't who don't like the cold. I really admire them for getting on the start line, you know, doing it all the way through, getting through all that water and stuff, and preparing. Some of them were wearing neoprene and everything, and doing it for the love of the sport, and also to try and, you know, qualify for their country and things. So I respect that, and I hope that we all keep doing it, really.
James, any final thoughts from you about Challenge Cup?
On the whole, I was pleased with it. It was challenging. Like I said, I am very willing to learn. In fact, we say we learn, you know, something every single race. So I keep up the advice, the criticism, the banter. I do listen, but I can't. You know, it's a semi sort of political role. Like, I can't please everybody the whole time, and often criticism isn't perhaps valid because it's just suited to their own personal circumstance, or just from a race director's point of view, it just wouldn't work. And there's stuff we've learned over the years hosting the Worlds and things that just are bad ideas. So I love it. I love all the new enthusiasm. I love the fact that you know, there were so many sign-ups. It was so competitive. Keep it up. It just brings more. It stimulates everybody. It stimulates the sport, the existing people. Just keep it up. Keep the momentum going, and I'll support that. Hence the question about November. If there's enough, I mean, it is a tough cold race. But if
Becky wants it.
If there is enough people that say, look, we want to do it, it's a really good thing, like a series of it, or just an end of the season one, or, you know, they say, right, let's take all the water out. Let's run one without water.
Yeah,
and see
there we go.
I'm up for that. But I need, you know, a bit of injection and enthusiasm from you guys to tell me what you want done.
Yeah, we could try it without water in winter.
Yeah.
Oh, I might even have a go then.
Yeah, you might maintain the people tailing off if that was a
maybe the zip line. Keep the zip line.
You can have wet feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't know. I haven't really thought about it, but I mean, we used to when we
sure.
first built the death slide in 2014. We used to just run that in the May race, and in the November we didn't do it. We considered full water immersion there was just too much.
Too much.
We could do 7K plus Challenge Cup loop.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you did last year.
Yeah, and we did too. Yeah.
Twice.
We cut out the.
I think people like one lap in general.
Yeah, it's good. I'll tell you what was really good, not having Ebenezer.
Yeah.
Was there no Ebenezer? You're
Yeah,
kidding
Well,
me.
you
Thank
could have
the
done
Lord.
Ebenezer.
Ebenezer was easy this year as well.
It looked thin. The mud looked thin.
Juicy, yeah. My excavator broke down. If you really want to know, Becky, that's why.
Shame.
we couldn't churn it up to its normal splendor. But yeah, no, I'm up for that. Listening, I mean, especially on a race like that, we've done that. We know that one's hard. We know water's hard. I don't regret putting the water in at all for this race, but I can see there's a valid argument to.
I think
There was a lot of slides. Sorry, Becky.
Yeah,
I don't mind a slide,
slides are fun.
but
It's
just
hard.
for some anxiety.
From my point of view, though, if we're set up for the day,
Yeah,
we've
for the fun
started
runners. Yeah, I get that.
releasing waves while you're running.
Yeah,
Just have complete confusion if we're not careful, running over tape, under tape, round tape.
yeah.
If it
So
was
it's not-
a dedicated day just for you guys, that's a game changer. But
I think
you've got to have the numbers to support that, obviously, from my perspective.
other just last bit of information. Useful insight is what people aren't saying. You know, beforehand, people were worried about Minions and Kingfisher being too difficult, and things were put in place for that. But then in the end, that didn't seem to be an issue. And Stairway to Heaven or Phoenix Rising has often been a quite difficult obstacle, and people can do them now. People can achieve them.
Progress. Yeah.
So I think there's lots of good insight there, and things for the athletes to reflect on that they've improved on as well. Like, I didn't find Stairway to Heaven tricky at all, even though my arms were a bit pumped by then and I was cold. But it was slightly different. slightly different muscle group. It's got the grippy edges. So
am I not right? In November, though, only 2 people completed it again. It was something like that.
Yeah, on the first lap, but not the second lap.
It's a massive, improvement in 6 months.
Yeah.
Great, guys. Well, thank you very much. So, James Parrish, the race director of Nuclear Races, thank you very much for your time. You can follow Nuclear Races on Instagram at Nuclear Races. In terms of the scores, if you just want to go track the scores and keep track of everything that's going on in the UK OCR series, visit the British Obstacle Sports website. It's britishobstacle.org. That's where you can see the most up-to-date points for all of the races, as well as the overall standings. My thanks, as always, to my 2 co-hosts. I've got Chris Shipley. Follow him on Instagram at Obstacle Race Dude. Becky Neal, congratulations on your win once again. Inspired by Becky. You can find her on Instagram at The Runner Bean UK. Oh, Becky, we've got 12,000 views of my sausage roll, so thank you very much.
Oh, yes. Excellent commentary.
Definitely. You can follow British Obstacle Sports on Instagram at British Obstacle Sports. And of course, if you haven't already, why not? But you can follow UKOCR on all the socials at UKOCR. Our next race is Sunday, the 18th of June, Rude Rampage, a brand new race. We're really, really looking forward to it. So Chris, Becky and myself will be back on to preview, hopefully with the RD James Higgs to come and join us to talk about that. There's also the Scottish OCR race, which is their next race is 3rd of June, Tough Mudder, Scotland, the Infinity Series. I'm actually taking part in that, so I might take a couple of scouts, hopefully. Dumfries in Scotland. So good luck to those guys. Probably going to get another preview show for that, and probably work with the Scottish guys to preview that. So please look out on the podcast to hear that out. Guys, thank you very much. This has been the Nuclear Challenge Cup recap. It's the second race of the UK OCR series. Thank you very much. My name is Wil Chung. This has been the UK OCR podcast. Goodbye.
Bye.
Toodaloo.
Bye-bye.
Hello, and thank you for downloading the latest UK OCR podcast. My name is Wil Chung, and this is Who's Hot, and I am here to recap Nuclear Challenge Cup, which incorporated national every time. You was waiting for that, Chris.
Yeah, I was.
So, just let me go through. Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to find the bloody standings now.
I've got them.
I've got the women's in front of me.
Oh, have you? Right.
Turns to sun rays, and on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Turns to sun rays, and on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. See the horizon, turn us to thousands, and we'll grow in number, fuel